Hi everyone, welcome to the Archival project training video. This video will hopefully help you with some of the more conceptual items on the coding page, and I'll show you exactly how to enter everything in, where to look for materials in the papers. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is go to the Archival project website. It's archivalproject.org, and this is how it looks right now. It might change in the future, but no matter what you're going to want to do is look at the available papers list. Today we're looking at Kathleen Vaux's The Value of Believing in Free Will, and it's just going to be our example paper, but you will want to click on View and open up. I clicked on the DOI, I opened it in a new tab. I'm logging into the site via my university login. If you work or attend a school, then you should have one. But if you have any trouble getting a paper, just contact us at ZUS and we can help you get hold of one. I'm going to click on the PDF. I'm going to save it to my desktop. Vaux's 2008. Going to open that up. Go back here. I'm going to close this and head back to the all available papers. It's just a little easier to navigate like this right now. Like I said, the website's going to be changing some in the future, so let's see. We're going to want to code this for the first time. And I think it's also helpful to have the coding scheme open. During the video, I won't reference this too much, but I think whenever I'm coding a paper, it's very useful to just go through. It explains everything step by step, what to look for. It gives you a couple examples of things. It's pretty lengthy, but it's also very comprehensive. So you can go back to here. And the first thing to do when you're getting started is just to read the abstract, introduction, and the study that you're going to be looking at today, or that day that you're coding. Each paper is divided into experiments or studies, and each of those experiments or studies can have multiple tests in them. We're not necessarily going to be coding all of them. So here's experiment 1, and that has several tests in it, and here's experiment 2, and that probably has several tests in it. But we might not be entering all of that data into our coding form. How we know what data we're going to be entering is what is mentioned in the abstract. So it's important that you read that ahead of time. You might want to go ahead and read through all of that abstract, introduction, and the experiment 1, because that's what we'll be talking about today. And you can pause the video, and then once you're done with that, just start it up again. Okay, so I am assuming that you have read the abstract, introduction, and experiment 1. So we can go to the coding page and maybe enter a description for study number 1. Just so you know, when you click description here, you're not necessarily going to be able to highlight that word. Just start typing in the field and description will go away. I'm going to call it experiment 1. And so this question is asking whether or not the experiment 1 was replicating anything previously. So when I read this paper, and hopefully when you did too, you didn't see anything about mimicking somebody else's procedures for experiment 1. So we're going to go ahead and say that it's a novel or new study. Okay, so test number 1. Like I said, we are only coding tests that are mentioned in the abstract. So let's go back to the abstract. And we're going to look for an effect, because effects are, or results are the results of a test. So let's read through this. Does moral behavior draw on a belief in free will? So this question is introducing you to the main concept of the paper. Here, the next sentence, 2 experiments, you know that there are 2 experiments, examined whether inducing participants to believe that human behavior is predetermined would encourage cheating. In experiment 1, which we're looking at today and we're coding on the sheet, participants read either text that encouraged a belief in determinism or neutral text. So this is a procedure, it's not a result. Exposure to the deterministic message increased cheating on a task in which participants could passively allow a flawed computer program to reveal answers to mathematical problems that had been instructed to solve themselves. So exposure to the deterministic message increased cheating. That is a result. So we're going to look for a test that has that result. If you go to experiment 1, you can find this test in the cheating paragraph under results. All the tests will be reported under results. And so this is the test that we're coding, but it's not actually the first test that's reported in the results section. The first test that's reported is not mentioned in the abstract. It's this one up here, and so we don't need to bother coding that. But the cheating one here is exactly what was mentioned here. So again, it's whether or not the message being read, the deterministic message being read, increased cheating. And here we can see that analysis of the main dependent measure, degree of cheating, revealed that, as predicted, participants cheated more frequently after reading the anti-free will essay. So a deterministic message increased cheating, and that's the test that we're looking for. So we can go to the coding page, and I'm going to call this cheating so I know where I found it in the paper. And now we want to know if the hypothesis existed, and if it did, was it directional or not? So again, had you read the paper, you'll know that at the end of the introduction, they state a hypothesis. So right here, you can even just copy and paste this. It says, we hypothesize that participants induced to believe that human behavior is under the control of predetermined forces would cheat more than would participants not led to believe that behavior is predetermined. So this hypothesis is directly related to the tests that we're coding. If they reported other hypotheses for a different test, we're not going to put that in this field because we're only talking about this test right now. I'm going to fix the formatting as well, just because PDFs aren't necessarily the most friendly thing to this form. And now it's on page 50. Okay. So you can see the page number down here. So the next question is, was this test done on a subsample? Subsamples are when only a certain group of participants from within the pool of the study's overall participants are used. So right here it says participants were 30 undergraduates, and nowhere in the method does it say that anyone was excluded. So no, this was not done on a subsample. And now we get to the analytic code design. So our options are all written out here. And there's a little bit more detail in the coding scheme. Okay, so here in the coding scheme, you have all of your options. Correlational, internal analysis of manipulation check, experimental analysis, repeated measures. So you should read through those. I also think that the slides before you gave you good examples and some test questions on those. For this study, we are actually going to code it as experimental analysis of manipulation effect, because the participants were assigned to a group with a manipulation. So some participants were assigned to the the group that read the deterministic message, and some didn't read that. They just read the consciousness article, and that is detailed in this first paragraph under procedure. So the control condition is just a chapter on consciousness, and anti-free will condition is the deterministic message. Okay, so that's a between participants design, meaning that it's experimental. So we can put that in our form. And next, we are going to, I'm actually going to put the independent variables, the dependent variables. So our independent variable was whether or not they were exposed to the deterministic message. So let's see what exactly they called it here. They say degree of cheating is the dependent measure, and after reading anti-free will essay. So let's call that exposure to deterministic message. And, oh. The dependent variables was degree of cheating. Okay, you don't need to detail what the specific groups were. Methodology codes is another sort of conceptual idea. You might want to read through the slides again or refer to, I'm back on the coding scheme here. Again, there are a bunch of options, and actually when I was looking through the paper, I had a couple ideas as to what methodology code might be appropriate. So when we're doing analytic design code, there's only one option, but methodology codes can be multiple, however many is appropriate. I found that in this instance, there's only one code that's appropriate, but I did consider several of them. Initially, I considered self-report measures because I was just reading through the article and writing things down as I was going, and when I got to the procedure, one of the first things that they describe is how participants completed a free will and determinism scale. And participants are answering questions on a scale or on a survey, that is self-reporting. However, that self-reporting was used here, it says, to assess whether or not the reading manipulation affected their beliefs and mood. So that manipulation check is not relevant to our test. It's this test up here. So for this test, the self-report measures are not relevant. Okay. Another one that I thought it could have been, and I'd like to explain why it's not, is indirect verbal or response time measures. I was thinking that this may be a sort of implicit measure, but after thinking about it more, because the participants are sort of under the impression that they are secretively cheating, I thought that might be considered implicit. But the thing is, with implicit measurements, a participant doesn't know that they are engaging in a certain behavior. So here in this study, the researcher is looking at cheating behavior, and the participants know whether or not they are cheating. In a true implicit design, a participant will be measured on something like bias, and they will not be realizing that they're revealing that bias. But here, the participant knows that they are cheating. So it's not implicit, so it's not indirect. Instead, we're going to use behavioral. So that's BC, and this just means that the participant's behavior was assessed, and that is one of the variables. So it's just the one. Okay, and there were no other variables. And that's all we're going to do for now. The number of participants, the type of statistical test, effect size, test statistic, all of this is given to you pretty directly in the results page. So normally they'll say what tests they run, give you all of the variants and such. So I'm not going to cover that in this video. But thank you very much for watching. Feel free to contact us with any questions. I am Johanna, and you can contact me at johanna@centerforopenScience.org. And thank you very much.